Wow, that's beautiful. What a beautiful song. Thank you so much, Peggy. Beautiful message as well. We're glad you're here. To have a vision in your life is to answer this question. What could your life be like? This is the way your life is today, now, but this is the way your life could be like. That's why everybody needs some kind of a vision for their life. They need something ahead of them that they can see as a way their life could be like. I think that's why so many people have struggled in these COVID times, because the future is so uncertain. People will say, well, I did have a vision for my life, and this is what I planned, but now with COVID here, the future is so uncertain, so I don't know what my life could be like anymore. Because of COVID and that uncertainty, in some way they've lost their vision. Well, we live in a culture that paints for us a picture of what our life could be like. There was a woman lying on a yacht in a bathing suit, and it was a beautiful day, blue sky, gentle breeze. She's sipping on an exotic drink, and she's talking on her phone. And on her phone, we hear her say, "We won. We won." That's a lottery commercial. They sell us that vision, though, don't they? Like, if you have bags of money, this is what your life could be like. You could have that same yacht with a little luck. When our son Taylor was thinking about going to RMC, it's a military school in Kingston, the recruiting officer said to him, here's what your life could be like if you go to RMC, and here's what we'll give you to make it like that. We'll train you in academics and athletics. You have to be fluent in 2 languages, and we'll turn you into a leader. And if you do all those things, your life could be like this. And they gave Taylor a vision for what RMC would bring him. We need a vision in our lives, every single one of us, that will tell us what our life could be like. What could your life be like? Marriage and family. We imagine getting married, and we have this vision for what our life could be like, and then we imagine having kids, and that's what our life could be like. We're going to have kids. It's a vision for the future. Randy Bachman, who does Vinyl Cafe on CBC. You know Randy Bachman, he was in BTO, the guitar player, songwriter. And he was talking about when they were just starting BTO, they would travel around Western Canada in a van. And they would sleep in the van and do these little gigs here and there. But they were able to do that because they had a vision of what their life could be like. Well, they went on to be one of Canada's best bands ever. Martin Luther King Jr. He gave people a vision of what their lives could be like in a world where people are treated equal. And you know the story. He went out and marched on the streets and never incited any violence from his followers. And he said to them, this is what your life could be like. So look, whatever it is that you do it because at one point you had a vision for what your life could be like. Each one of us has dreams for what our life could be like. And when we go back into ancient words long before Jesus, words of the prophets gave the people a vision of what their life could be like. Isaiah the prophet said, there will be a day. There will be a day of a new heaven and of a new earth, and in that day there will be no more crying and no more pain and no more tears, and the lion will lay down with the lamb. Isaiah gave people a vision of hope for their future. And Jeremiah did too. When Jeremiah said, God is like a potter and you're like a lump of clay, and God has his hands on you, and God has a plan for your life and wishes to prosper you. Now, prosper doesn't necessarily mean materially, but it was a vision for what your life could be like. And back then, those prophets were most often talking to people who were broken, people who were living in a time of exile, people who couldn't do what they normally did anymore because the world had changed. And Ezekiel said to those people, you people are like a valley of dried up old bones. I know that. You're having a hard time. What you loved has been taken away from you. But Ezekiel said the Spirit of God is going to move over you, and all your dried up bones are going to come back to life. The prophets gave people a vision of what their life could be like. And that's what Jesus did. When we get up into the New Testament, 600, 700, 800 years after the prophets in the life of Jesus, Jesus was influenced by the prophets. Jesus studied the prophets. And Jesus had the same message. I want to give you a vision of what your life could be like. And he did that in all kinds of different ways. He preached a sermon where he just turned everything upside down. He said the poor will be rich. He said, blessed are those who mourn, not blessed are those who have everything they want. And Jesus called the vision that he had of what your life could be like, Jesus called it the kingdom of God. Here's what Jesus said several times throughout the Gospels. Listen to this. This is amazing. He said, I have come that you might have life and have it in abundance. So, in answer to the question, what could your life be like? Well, what your life could be like is abundant. That's what Jesus says. I've come to give you abundance. It's what everybody wants in their life, abundance. You want to have everything that you need. You want to be happy. You want to be blessed. And the first followers of Jesus, who were fisher people, left Jesus because Jesus gave them abundance. That was their motive for following Jesus. Do you remember those words? Jesus comes into the scene. They were struggling. They were having a difficult time. And they haul in all these fish, so many fish that they couldn't even use them all. Now, what does Jesus mean here when he says abundance? We're going to get to that in just a second. They followed Jesus because Jesus gave them abundance in their life. Now, you know, some people follow Jesus and become Christians for different reasons. I think it's true, and I think most of you watching will agree that many people follow Jesus or become Christians is because they're afraid of going to hell. Now, maybe that's not as common in this generation. Maybe. But certainly in past generations, that has been a motive for following Jesus and attending church, that the penalty for not doing that is eternal damnation. Or other people followed Jesus because it just seems like it's the right thing to do. It's kind of like if you go to school and you got to sit through some kind of boring class and you don't really like it, but you just know it's ultimately, on some level, a good thing. It's the right thing to do. In my first year of university, my undergrad, I took a geology course. Geology. It was like a semester of looking at rocks. I couldn't stand it. It was awful. Now, my brother became a geologist, and at that time, he was 2 years ahead of me, and I used all his notes, and that's how I passed. But it was just boring, but somehow I knew it was the right thing. I needed to get my degree. It's like that for some people in terms of following Jesus and believing in God. It's kind of boring. It's like sitting through some boring, long, arduous class, but on some level you just have to do it. It's the right thing. But abundance? That's the motive for following who Jesus is? Abundance? So much abundance that we will be astonished. Now, the word astonished is not my word. Listen to this. This comes from verse 9. For he and all of his companions were astonished at the catch of fish that they had taken. Can you imagine that if you had the kind of faith, that if you were a Christian that could consistently be astonished by what Jesus is doing in your life? Like, how does that happen in your life? Now, it's true that some people have misunderstood what Jesus means by abundance. And I think we all know that that teaching is out there that says if you follow Jesus, you'll have everything you want and your life will be smooth and comfortable. And that God wills for you to have lots of money to spend in big things. And then you'll have health. You'll never have to deal with illness. And your life will just be good. You'll be a winner. The road will be smooth. Some people interpret abundance in that way. One word for that way of thinking is called reward theology. And that kind of teaching is out there. You know that. You can fill a church 3 times on a Sunday and maybe on a Wednesday night. If you taught people that and they believed it with all their hearts, you come, you be a part of this church community, and God is just going to give you everything you want, and you'll have abundance. But listen to this. Look, what Peter and James and John gained clearly was not anything like that. In fact, in that story at Luke 5 at verse 11, it says they gave up everything they had to follow. They gave up all that other kind of abundance. It's got to mean something different. This abundance doesn't seem to have anything to do with what so many of us spend all our lives working towards. These fishermen met Jesus on the shore of a lake that they were fishing in, and something happened that caused them great joy, and they became followers, and they left everything they had. It was a huge risk. And Jesus did something in their lives that left them astonished. There are just a couple of things that I want you to see here. This might be an aha moment for you if you've never seen this before. You all who are wondering how to get this abundance in your life. Simon does something in this story that creates an environment. It's the right environment in which Jesus can bring in the power of God. And if you're anything like me, this is a recipe that you'll want to know. So here's the scene. Just put this into your mind's eye, this story. Jesus is teaching outside. As usual, he's surrounded by a crowd of people. At verse 1, the people were crowding around him and listening to the word of God. Because there's so many people, Jesus logistically has to figure out how to have people hear him. So what he does is he sees a boat docked, and the boats were about 20 feet long, these fishing boats that were used then. Typical boat about 20 feet long, about 7 feet wide. And Jesus knew that if he got in that boat and went out into the water a little bit, people would be able to hear him, because sound carries across water. So Jesus asked Simon, I'm going to get into your boat, and I want you to put me out into the water. Now remember, at this time, that those fishermen, Simon and the others, they weren't disciples then. They were just like everybody else. There were people that probably were curious because Jesus already had a bit of a reputation, but they were just probably wondering how Jesus could be relevant to their lives. They were just one of the crowd. And that's when Jesus told Simon to do something. Jesus said to Simon, take the boat out even into deeper water and throw your net out. And Simon says this, listen, we've been out all night long and we haven't caught anything. Why would it be any different now? They were tired. They had no energy left because they'd been working all night and they had come up empty. Working all night, coming up empty. That's something that you've been through, and that's something that I've been through. Throwing your net out all night long, all week long, all month long. Maybe you've been throwing nets out all your life, and they just keep coming back empty. You know that feeling. I've been working at my career so hard. I went to school, I sacrificed this, I sacrificed that. My career went really well. And now 30 years later, I have this career that I've always dreamed about, but I'm hauling up nets that seem empty and I don't know why. Or maybe it's the money that you have, that you've sacrificed a lot to gain a certain level of materialism. Come on, we're all in the same boat. We all know what that means in our culture. And we've sacrificed for that. And now when we walk down the main street, everybody knows how much money we have. Not exactly, but they know what we own. And that's everything that you've ever worked for and everything that you've ever wanted. And one morning you get up and you haul up that net and it's empty. It's empty. What about the more we play? the more we try to find things that are fun. So we golf more, we take more holidays. Like we do all these things, that more parties, date more women, whatever it is, that time comes when we haul it up. And we can't understand why the net is empty. See, they were out all night. And all night could mean, that's our life. They're out all night, and they're working, and they're hauling up empty nets. And now Jesus comes and says, I want you to listen to me and try it one more time. And they're like, you think we're going to catch something now? We've been doing it all night long. What about, trying to get healthy? You live your whole life just trying to be healthy, and you're fit, and you work hard at that, and you eat right, and you get up one morning and you haul up that net, and no matter how good that might be for your physical health, why is that net empty again? And you don't know why. We know what it's like to work all night and haul up an empty net. And so Jesus comes and says, look, try it once more. Simon says, Jesus, you're saying to us, if we listen to your direction, everything will change? Is that what you're saying? If I listen to you and not listen to these other voices that are all around me, career, wealth, health, recreation, play, whatever, if I listen to your voice, everything's going to change? Is that what you're telling me? Things will be different? Because all my life I've been listening to different directions, and now that's what you're saying? And here's what Simon says. Because you say so, talking about Jesus, I'm going to let that net down once more. One more time. What is that? Like, what do you even call that? Is it that he just wanted to believe it so much? Is that just a leap of faith? Is that what that is? He just wanted to believe that Jesus could work a wonder? I've tried all the other ways of throwing my net out there in my life. I say, and you say, and Simon said that night. I've tried all those other ways, and now you want me to try it your way. So he threw the net out one more time because Jesus told him to, and not all the other voices around him. In the Beaver Valley, many of you know the Beaver Valley. There's a trail that goes up to the top. There's a cliff called Old Baldy. We've been up there a few times. It's beautiful. Overlooks the Beaver Valley and the village of Kimberley. And you can walk up there and walk up to the top of this cliff. The cliff face is probably about 150 meters. It's popular for rock climbing. Our neighbor, actually, in Nottawa, Reg Smart, was one of the best rock climbers in the 1980s with his brother. And people climb up this cliff face. It's amazing. And you can walk right out to the edge, which is kind of nerve-wracking if you have children or dogs, because it's just kind of nerve-wracking. But once we went up there, years ago, and there was a man standing at the edge of the cliff, ready to jump. But he had these wings on his back. He had this kind of, it was like a hand glider attached to his shoulders and his chest. And he was just standing there waiting for the right moment to jump. And we were just watching him, just transfixed. And then suddenly, like oh so suddenly, he jumped and he fell. And we looked over the cliff, and just as we were looking, we saw that the wind at that moment took the sails, and he went flying up into the sky. And it was so free and so wild that we, standing on the ground, couldn't even imagine what that would be like. I don't know. He was able to take that leap, I think because he knew, like he was waiting for the right moment. He knew the wind would be a certain way at a certain moment, and he was an expert, and he was waiting for that. So the exact moment he jumped was the exact moment this wind was coming up, and it took him away. So I guess it wasn't really a leap of faith after all. But maybe for you it's more of a leap of faith. I've tried all the other ways of throwing my net out there, and now you want me to try it this way? So here's where we land on all of this. Jesus is asking you, asking me, to obey his direction. Not the other directions that surround you all the time, not the money direction, not the health, not the direction. Not the career direction. You obey my direction now. And Jesus' direction is all through the Bible. And Jesus promises that if you obey my direction and throw your net out that way, you will have a life of abundance. That's a promise. Try it my way now. So here's the direction. Because you're thinking, well, what does that mean? Here's the direction. Forgive those who've hurt you. Man, that's hard to do. Man, that's so hard to do. Jesus, don't ask me to do that. Jesus said, forgive those who have hurt you. If you find a way to forgive the people in your life that have hurt you, your life will be so abundant, you'll be astonished. Throw that net out. Jesus said, welcome the stranger. Oh, come on, Jesus, I don't know these people. They're different. They speak different. They have different habits. They come into my life. They come into my house. That means I'll have to change in some way. That's hard. Jesus said, I know it's hard. Throw that net out. You do that, and your life will be filled with abundance. I promise you that. Serve the needs of people around you. Ah, Jesus, come on. In our culture, it's the opposite. We're just taught to serve ourselves. People who make it in this life, people who are winners in this life, have people who serve them. I know, Jesus says, if you find a way to serve the needs of people around you, that's the net I want you to throw out. If you do that, I promise you your life will be abundant and you'll be astonished. Be generous. That's Jesus' direction to you. Be generous. If you can find a way to be generous in your life and realize that everything that you have is really not yours, you're just taking care of it. God has given you everything. If you find a way to share what you have with the people around you, your life will be filled with abundance. That's the net that I'm asking you to throw out so that you don't have to keep hauling up empty nets anymore. Believe. Listen. This is a direction to you from Jesus. Believe that you are a child of God. Believe that you are made in the very image of God. Oh man, that's so hard, Jesus. Do you know why that's so hard? Because every time I look in the mirror, all I can see is failure. All I can see is my own weakness every time I look at myself. All I can see are the things that I've done wrong. And Jesus said, look, if you can believe you're a child of God and more precious in God's sight than you even know, throw that net out. Your life will be filled with abundance. And if you do, this is the promise of this story. If you do, it will be so much abundance that you will be astonished in your life. So, this is what your life could be like. Listen to this direction, and your net will come back full. No more empty nets. Take a leap into it. Be astonished. It's the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God.